Good afternoon. Welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase here with the indomitable Ian White. Ian here today representing Crux. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm very good. And yourself, Simon? How are you?
Resplendent, feeling good. Counting down the days till I get that little injection in my arm. Just to be clear, that's a vaccination rather than anything else.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, yes, not bad at all. Obviously, excluding what's going on out there, it does seem there's still a lot of business to be done.
Yeah, I mean the markets. We'll be talking off air, weren't we, just a few minutes ago, how robust it is. But the figures coming in the early parts of January. Certainly, I did 15 accountability calls on Friday, and it was the numbers coming in are good, very good.
So we're here today. Crux is a recruitment business, obviously, that you've been working with for some time now. And I suppose one of the key elements there is recruitment quite often is the canary in the cage, isn't it, in terms of how the market is going. Just on that on that basis point, what have you? How are you guys seeing it out there? Is the labour market still particularly mobile?
Yes, it's very busy. The recruitment is where we're listing plenty of vacancies and we're listing plenty of candidates, and as a result, doing lots of placements. So yes, I mean the recruitment market is still strong from the agency and the prop tech sectors, which is where we tend to specialise in. So yeah, we're seeing a high demand from employers, and we're seeing plenty of good quality candidates to suit. So all running smoothly and as expected, if not better, perhaps.
That's good. Could you explain to me something that I've not particularly got my head around? And it's from talking to a few recruitment agents. Of course, there are others there, I should point out, Ian.
Yeah, we accept.
I couldn't get my head around, certainly in terms of the first 6 months of the year following on from lockdown. In my head, it felt like nobody should be moving. Everybody would have been grateful for having a job. And that just wasn't the case, was it? What do you put down to that almost willingness to take a move at what is quite a uncertain time?
Well, look, I think you're dealing with three different types of recruitment there. You've got people that don't have a job that are looking for one. Well, of course, that's a very different. Their mindset about going out and finding a job is very different. You've got people that are probably quite happy where they are, but if the right opportunity was put in front of them, and they're quite challenging because clearly they will be walking away from employment rights into, in effect, for the first 2 years, no employment rights.
Yeah.
So if there is a challenge in the recruitment space at the moment that we're seeing is that you may well job offer somebody who genuinely thought they were up for moving, but when it really came to handing in notice, parents, relatives, and their own perhaps internal combustion engine decided against it on the grounds they were walking away from. If the worst came to the worst and they got made redundant, or for whatever reason they've got employment rights, and so that has and is a challenge. But of course, there are those that have made up their mind to move. They for whatever reason they're not being challenged where they are. They've not got the right progression. They don't think they're being paid enough. They've fallen out with the boss. The geography's changed. We've placed. I wouldn't want to say on air the percentages and be wrong, but a lot of the people that we've placed are where a company's rung me and said, "Look, Ian, my neg is moving to, or my lister or my manager's moving to here. Yeah. He's great. Please help him. You know, he asked me to put him in touch, but I want to give him a reference type of thing. I want you to help him find somewhere." Or we've had bosses ring up and say, "Look, reluctant, we've had to let people go because they've reimagined their business or they've restructured their business. And can you help these people find a job?" So, if you're moving, I don't know, from London to Cornwall, if you've made that lifestyle decision, you're gonna do it, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, but you're hinting at the moving from no employment right to from employment rights to no employment rights. That is a challenge. That is obviously a challenge.
So, what's happening at the moment in terms of the whole, so essentially mobility or workplace etiquette with new employment? Are you finding people that are already planning ahead and looking, more people being much more relaxed? I mean, there's a state agency, unlike the prop tech sector. Prop tech, we've always worked remotely. A lot of people work from home, so that's kind of us being wandering nomads, isn't it? But agents clearly, have a patch on the whole. But even there, is there more flexibility in terms of home working and things like that you're seeing from employers, or do they still, on the whole, want them in because agents famously have been given great dispensation to carry on working?
In terms of people operating stance, they're typically working in bubbles where they've got one team in, one team out, so that if the worst comes to the worst, it's not the whole team that has to isolate. But that's more of a structure for now, to get around the existing piece. Some businesses are certainly seeing the advantage, both in being able to recruit certain candidates in a more flexible approach to where you physically do your work from.
Yeah.
Some are more wedded to the traditional. We sit in rows of, you open the door and there's an estate agent sat on every desk, and they'll be there, and that's where they do their work, 8 till 6 or whatever the hours are. So I think that's very varied, and the age group of the age of the business owner typically will dictate their view towards that, I think.
You're not suggesting that some of the more experienced members of our profession are more Luddite driven?
Yes, as a rule, yeah, a little bit. I mean, clearly there are some people of senior age that have very, very forward-thinking views, and there are some people that are perhaps younger that are of the opposite. We should have talked about turning the phone off, shouldn't we? Before.
Is that your Uber Eats arriving?
No, it's actually an estate agent trying to get hold of me, believe it or not. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. I mean, certainly it is easier to recruit good talent if there isn't a requirement for them to work from the office every day of the week.
It opens the pool, doesn't it? The pool of experience and people you can get after. I think that's the really exciting element there. You'll be aware we both work with Starbury, the website guys, and they've always had this approach, haven't they, where they can tap into talent wherever it is in the country, and in fact even in terms of the world. But that's really interesting. So Ian, in terms of obviously the fact that look, there's 10 a penny recruiters out there, becomes obviously much more specialist when you're looking at the property and property trade specifically. But how do you guys differentiate yourselves on the whole from all the other recruiters that are out there?
I think there are 3 areas where I believe that we differentiate and would certainly want to keep driving further that differentiation. The first one would be the way we acquire candidates is significantly different from most, if not all, certainly in the property arena. Whereas we don't use job boards. Well, we use one job board. We have one job board that we put them on there almost because you have to. Not because we particularly want to, but we have one job board. So we don't just simply get a vacancy and then go and run to the job boards and strip off all the CVs that are interested and pass them on to the clients. Because frankly, we would rather train them how to do that. I mean, that's part of what we do in the consultancy side of what we do. So if that's the type of recruitment somebody wants, we can help them with that, but we wouldn't charge them a fee for that process because it's not, we're not adding any value to what they could do themselves other than perhaps a little bit of time. So we use, there's 2 things I think we do that are very different. One is the technology we use with which to identify suitable candidates and nurture them to the point where they might be suitable for a vacancy. So we are typically permanently recruiting for our clients.
Yeah.
And then when they're ready, we go into the pool of people that are suitable. Some may be interested, some may not, but we're not sort of recruiting from the active job market to a vacancy that's just come up. We're recruiting to the active and passive job market all the time. So look, the best person is not the guy that's just been fired. The best person is the guy that the boss will fight to keep.
Yeah.
And we're looking through the passive market to connect our clients with the person that the other boss is going to fight to keep.
How do you balance what I can accept is a really difficult dynamic whereby you can work with agents and obviously recruitment clients over the years, and you might place obviously somebody with that business. How do you do what is a very common criticism of recruitment agents, where they are perceived to then bounce those people out as well? Because, of course, that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, doesn't it? If they perceive, oh, God, I don't want to deal with XYZ recruiter because they're only going to try and move them away just as they've got settled.
The best way we've done it is that we've actually got a term in our contract that says if it happens, we'll pay you £10,000 compensation. So it's actually in our terms.
Okay, hard-coded to make sure that as much as possible can't happen or won't happen.
Well, look, I mean, I think, as you know, Simon, we are owned by estate agents who built Crux because they weren't very happy with the sort of behaviours you've just discussed, and some of the others. So our terms and the way we operate is, in such a way that we want to not break all the rules that have already offended the estate agency world. So, but the simplest way we felt about doing that was to put it into the contract, because, if we've got a network of brokers working for us, will we occasionally have someone that goes rogue? Yeah, but okay, we'll compensate you if that happens and then get rid of them. It hasn't happened yet, but we wanted to be watertight on it, that one, our people know that it's totally unacceptable behaviour. Two, if it happens, there is a cost. One to the business, and one it would immediately terminate their agreement with us to operate our brand. So, we're very strict on it.
Nice peace of mind there, really, to help people with that issue, because it is an issue. I mean, other recruiters that shall remain nameless have done a fantastic job getting people into me, but I know for a fact, luckily, the staff were happy enough to still be with us, and they just said, "Oh, he got on the phone the other day and sort of tried just saying, 'Are you completely happy?'" which felt a little bit sort of too close to the bone.
Yeah, look, I mean, we all know it happens. I think to be fair, there are good recruiters out there that wouldn't dream of doing it. They're slightly tarred with the same brush of the ones that do. A bit like there are agents that act badly and they get tarred with the brush. The good ones get tarred with the same brush. But, we've decided, well, okay, we won't behave like that, but we'll also make it contractually very prohibitive to even think about it, because, and as far as I know, we're the only people that have that actually written into our agreement, that, and it's there, it's on our terms, and we will pay it. We haven't had to pay it yet. Touch wood, we never will. But if it happened, I would pay it. And I would publicise I paid it.
Okay, great. I mean, it's nice to hear. In the same way that an agent, Ian, will often be, their success will be dictated by their stock. Win the right listings, and you'll do all right. Obviously, the truth is ultimately going to be the same for you and your candidates, isn't it? You've mentioned one area there with your and I know we've spoken previously about, you have got some quite innovative technology that does that. Are you able to enunciate again, to enlarge on why you get into such a big pool of talent yourselves?
Just ask that question again, Simon, because I want to make sure I'm asking the one that you've asked.
I just want to understand, how are you able to, I suppose, guarantee a decent stream of candidates, really?
You can't. I don't think you can guarantee anyone a decent stream of candidates. What you can guarantee them is that if there is a good candidate out there, we'll filter them properly. We'll make sure that we only send up the right candidates that we believe would pass our structures. We have technology now that filters first and second phase filtering, and actually rejects clients on our candidates on behalf of our clients, because there are certain things that we know 99.9% of our clients wouldn't accept. Therefore, we just do that automatically. The person still goes into the database because they might fit something else. But in essence, we spend a lot with this technology, with social media marketing, email marketing. Our pool of candidates is about 8,000 at the moment. But to be honest with you, I don't think it's very much like prospecting an estate agent. So the size of my database is a little bit like me talking about the size of my Johnson. It's pointless.
Really?
When you're prospecting for candidates, it's about speaking to 100 people regularly until a vacancy comes up.
Yeah,
it's not about speaking to 1,000 people once in a blue moon.
Yeah, and having
yes, we have a database of 8,000. Now, for some, that'll be quite small. There are agents that have been going a lot longer than us. But is it really? I mean, agents have got hundreds of thousands of buyers in their database, but at any given time, it's not about what's in it. It's about the ones that are looking, that could be persuaded, that could, maybe you find a vacancy that's 20 minutes nearer to home. Maybe you find a vacancy that's got a clearer route to promotion. Now, once we've established through the technology what their soft spots are, journey to work, fewer hours, no weekends, maybe they want to go out of corporate into independent. That's quite a common trend, because you typically get better quality leadership in the independent businesses, because you've got owner occupiers on the right involved at the coalface. So what we do is, we nurture those people that fit the right thing, and we nurture them directly for our clients. So the longer we work with a client, the more proficient we're going to get at having that group of people that we know would fit their culture, geography, way of doing things, the type of people they're after, whatever it might be that fits the bill. So when a vacancy comes up, we've already created that pool of people that we can go into. So we don't hit 10,000 people with a vacancy. We just don't do that. It's just not what we do. I don't think any recruiter does that, quite frankly. What we do is we hit the people that have already shown some form of behavior in their web habits, their social media habits, that would suggest they would like to be nearer to work or whatever it might be. We can do it. Because you've got to bear in mind that we know, I mean, and when I say we, the technology knows the journey that most people take to work.
Yeah.
So if a guy's taking, he's traveling from A to B and he's done it for 5 years and a job at a higher salary comes up at C in the middle here, a little bit closer to home, it's half reasonable to suggest that whether he was looking or not, he might take a peek.
Yeah.
Or she. And that's the sort of gist of our technology. It's very complicated to try and talk about it, in depth on here, but that's the sort of thing that it does.
That makes sense. And what do you do in terms of, obviously, I was going to say recruitment from within the industry is easy. Of course, nothing like that is easy. But how do you cater for getting a pool of talent from outside of the industry as well? Do you actively go out looking for people, I don't know, in the hospitality trade or in other trades who might want to chance their arm in the estate agency world? Is there any way that you can widen the pool of who you're looking at by looking outside of the property industry?
Yeah, so we have two types of campaigns. One is what I call a job and a business specific campaign that the technology looks after, and then you've got the branding that's looked after by our good friend Starbury. And obviously that is not agency specific. That is just simply putting us out there as a recruiter. People are making contact all the time. They're then put into the database. And of course, we are getting a lot of people from the leisure industry, the hospitality industry, hotels, travel agents. A lot of those people are looking to retrain because their industries have been sadly, very much stressed by the current situation with the pandemic. So, but of course, you've then got different types of companies. So some companies really aren't wanting to train or don't do training, and therefore their insistence upon us, one of their prerequisites to us or any other recruiter they're working with, is they must have experience. Whereas we work with quite a lot of businesses that actually their brief to us is, we don't want an estate agent, we actually want someone from outside the industry so we can teach them our way, rather than them come with their own baggage and their own ideas. You will get a lot of people on day one say, well, that's not what we did in my old job, and it's like, ooh. So bosses, a little bit like, do they stay open? Are they going to be flexible? The question you asked earlier, they fit all those colours. Some people only want experienced people because they're not perhaps good mentors themselves, or they don't want the effort or the cost of training. Others actually would prefer to take the person with the perfect attributes, all the right personality traits, and then teach them the estate agency piece.
Is there a different way of approaching recruits who are of that Generation Y group? Do you have to almost have a different pitch for them? Anecdotally, I hear from people that that they're perceived as being quite flighty, that they won't stick for a period of time. But it seems to be that a lot of these people have other desires and demands outside of just the basic salary.
I think in reality, the interview process stops that happening on both sides. I think a candidate of a certain type would probably, more often than not, reject a job offer from a boss of a certain type, and I think the reverse would happen. So they tend to attract. Of course, at the moment, you've got more of a candidate. The candidate desirability to take the job might be a little bit higher right now than maybe when we're in boom times, and so there might be a bit of imbalance there. But generally speaking, I think you end up, the process. If a good recruiter understands the culture of the business, they should be implicit in that in the first place. Yeah. But even if you are just simply putting people in front of people for whatever reason, a lot of the time the interview process will work out. The boss will just say, well, I just didn't feel they were right. What they mean is they were too flighty, or they weren't from the right generation, or they didn't have the right. But I do think certain bosses of certain types are really going, if they're not already, they're going to find that their retention is almost, very poor, and therefore their recruitment costs will go through the roof. And they'll be recruiting a lot because they, let's be honest, the onus is not on the candidate to learn how to behave in front of the certain type of boss. It is down to the boss now to learn how to motivate and train and keep we can't stop the progress of the human race. We can't stop.
Do you think that just genuinely, and you can admit if you're biased and stuck in your ways, do you think that on the whole is a good thing, or do you rue the good old days?
It depends in what sense. I mean, I actually think the sort of Generation X and the millennials and all of that, they're labels that are used. They're used a little bit too freely, I think, because I'm not so sure that generalization. I know lots of people that would be considered millennials that are absolutely have the values of maybe yesteryear.
Yeah,
I think it depends on parenting, who brought them up, lots of things. But look, there are certain things about yesteryear that, of course, I would hanker after as a recruiter if I was physically employing someone, because it's where I come from. Yeah. And I think the biggest difference is the speed with which a boss can fall out with a millennial versus, you could really fall out with your boss 20 years ago, but the next day you'd be best of mates.
Yeah.
Maybe now, if the boss pushes you too hard or does something you don't quite like, their reaction is to resign.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm out of here.
It's a bit like marriages. It just seems to be too easy to chuck in the towel,
Yeah, okay. Full subject. Move on.
I'd like to get rid of that bit. I'd anchor after that bit. That little bit more thick-skinned on both sides.
Okay, that's nice. And look, we talk back, going back to where we first met over in your Roman days, and I remember a bit of an epiphany for me was a lot of those people who got into the client services department had no real experience of estate agents per se. They were very young lads, but they had no fear of the phone, did they, at all? And literally, once you got as you said, to get rid of these lazy titles of Generation Y, these people just got on the phone from dawn till dusk, and let's be honest, put a lot of more experienced people to shame often.
Yeah, just so you know, Simon, your sound's it's very hard to hear you, but basically, look, I think that was there's a cause and effect there. The recruitment process was good in the fact that we were picking the right people. We were making it hard. There was a very high entry level to come into the call center, as you would know it, which is when you and me met, in fact, through the Repeat days. And so the recruitment was good in the fact that we recruited people with the right personalities, but then they were never ever allowed to think, or they were never ever allowed to sort of believe that perhaps not being on the phone was a good thing. It was just never, from day one they understood. So it's like if you allow someone to behave badly or averagely for 30 days and then moan on day 31 that they're not doing the job properly, well, I'm afraid that's your problem, not theirs. If from day one you give people a very clear message of what's expected, what results you're looking for, blah, 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 how that's going to be measured and monitored, what the praise and reward system is, what that means for their career. And of course, in those days, and I think it's different now from Roman's perspective because it's become a career in its own right, the call center there, but it was really a sort of server year there before you went into a branch. It was a nursery. So these people had to prove themselves, and the real power for them was to go and get the company car and go and get into an office where the basic went up and the commission element, the commission potential went up. So there was a desire to get out, and therefore, obviously, if you're hiring people who's right from day one, their goal is to be in an office, and they know exactly what they've got to do to be signed off to go to an office. If you hire the right people, they'll fight to knock over those requirements, in terms of their effort and energy. But yes, you'd have been in there many a time when it was like you can hardly hear yourself think because everyone was on the phone. There was never, if you went in there and they weren't on the phone, it's like, well, what's gone wrong? The phone system must have broken.
It was like an estate agency Willy Wonka chocolate factory. It was beautiful to watch and see the energy and everything else in there. So yeah, it was great. Ian, let's get to I was going to say the actual crux of the matter, which I realised I've just fallen into the branding trap you set for me. But the crux of the matter for many people, obviously, first of all, finding the right candidate, but then secondly, of course, getting the right price point. Can you talk us through the different models and again, how Crux positions itself just from that pricing point of view?
Yeah, look, we want to we want the market to look at us, and the message we want to put into the marketplace is that recruiting to fill a vacancy is great. We do that. If you've got a vacancy and you want us to fill it, we'll do it. Our system doesn't make us necessarily the fastest, and we'll be honest and open about that, because we have to go into the nurture process. It takes a few days to kick in. It's not like we will just, we'll strip off the boards and do that. So we're not, but we can do that. If all you want to do is fill a vacancy, we can do that. But where we're moving with our clients now is to complete the people circle. So the first thing I think as a recruiter for me, for the clients that are engaging with us on the full people piece, is the first thing we've got to do is try and avoid the vacancy in the first place if it's one through resignation. So we help and do some consultancy work. Of course, there's fees involved in this, where we help them fix their retention systems, making sure that they're retaining staff because they're creating the right environment. Often where it might be, let's say, for example, Simon, an older employer who hasn't really created the environment to retain today's employee, we provide that consultancy and we look at the reward and everything else. So the first thing I think a good recruiter should do, and certainly we do, is we should have avoidance of paying us. We should have avoidance of the vacancy requirement. But vacancies will come up, whether that's through expansion, people leaving, geography, change of heart, want to move on an industry. They're unavoidable, but they can be absolutely minimized if you get your retention piece. So the first thing is look at us as a retention agent as well as a recruitment agent.
Okay, right.
When the recruitment comes along, we've talked about where we differ in terms of the filtering and the actual finding of the candidate. We're very different in that sense that we get about, I don't know, maybe 100 CVs in through the technology now, maybe 120 CVs in a day through technology. However, honestly, 4 to 5 a day actually get pushed up to the clients, because the rest get stripped out or aren't quite right, or they get put into the system to be nurtured for something else at a later date. So we are going to save you time by filtering properly, and the candidate, we believe, the way we search for candidates means that the caliber in the first place is higher, but we are a little slower as a result. That is a fact.
I can never remember what's the saying. You can either have it one of 3 ways, can't you? You can't have it cheap. You can't have it. Yeah. That's the basic premise, though, isn't it? Basically, if you're going to want quality, you're willing to wait for it.
Well, if you wanted to do it quickly, honestly, guys, don't pay a recruiter. Just go to the job boards. You don't need recruiters if you're going to do it quickly. But if you want,
I can't believe that, Ian. You're talking yourself out of work here. What's going on?
Because I think it's right. I think it's absolutely right, Simon, that if you are only going to use a recruiter that uses job boards, what's the point?
Ian, thank you once more again for joining us here today, and thanks for answering all your questions.
Just quickly for your guys, if they are trying to look us up, it's Crux Careers. Just remember there's a second word, Crux Careers.
What are you saying? There's something like, is there some dodgy site out there as well?
I don't know, but if they put in Crux, they might not find us. But it's cruxcareers.co.uk.
I won't tell you where my mind was going with that. But anyway, Ian, thank you very much once more. Cheerio, matey. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.